This footage is gameplay of a game that's coming out in 2023 called Starfield. It's from the makers of the Elder Scrolls series, most famously Skyrim, and of course the Fallout series. Although most of the time I'm playing player versus player, first person, third person shooters, I do actually occasionally like to play like epic single player adventure games, something like, of course, Skyrim, Witcher 3, GTA 5. I had great fun playing those. And more recently Elden Ring as well, although Elden Ring's not usually the sort of thing I'd go for. But somehow that game, once you started playing it, you just can't stop playing until you completed the game. I don't know what it was, just so addictive. But I got high hopes for Starfield. Skyrim, like I say, is one of my favourite games of all time, and the world in which they created was just such a great environment to explore and live in and play in. Fallout 4, which I did play as well, not so much. I didn't like it so much. Never actually completed it in the end. I'm not sure what it was about that game. Just didn't click with me like Skyrim did. But yeah, Skyrim anyway, that was amazing. So I'm hoping that Starfield's going to be a bit more like whatever made Skyrim so good. I hope it's going to be a bit more like that than Fallout. But from what we can see in this footage, Starfield has a few similarities to Star Citizen, although I've not played Star Citizen for a while, a couple of years, maybe a year and a half, something like that. I need to get back on that actually because it's pretty good these days apparently. But anyway, the similarities are, of course, that in Starfield and Star Citizen, it's essentially a first, third-person shooter, where you're running around on foot, but then you can get in the spaceship and fly around in the spaceship. And from what we can see in the footage here, the first-person shooter combat looks pretty good, and so does the flying combat as well. But from having an initial look at the gameplay here, it does kind of remind me of Cyberpunk a bit, the way the gunfights play out. But the whole thing where you got the first-person element as well as the flying element, it just adds so much more to the game. It makes it feel much more than like if you're just in the cockpit flying, you can't actually get out. It just makes it so much more immersive. And as in Star Citizen, you can fly around within your own solar system, but you can also travel to other solar systems as well and land on all the planets and go and explore all the planets. Although I'm not sure if Starfield has the whole thing that Star Citizen has, where you actually fly, you control your own flight into the atmosphere from space and choose where you land and everything, which is pretty crazy. It's not exactly clear from this footage if that's going to be the case or not in Starfield, but possibly not. A few months back, Bethesda did release a couple of other videos where they were talking about some of the stuff that's going to be in Starfield that was not included in this more recent gameplay video. Some of the things they talked about included modding, so they did not directly say modding will be in Starfield, but they certainly implied that through what they were saying. But I'm pretty sure that modding will be in there because, like I say, they were saying that it was highly important to the longevity of some of their games, so yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be in there. But as I was saying, there's many solar systems in the game, and each solar system has many planets. Apparently there's over 1,000 planets to explore, which is pretty crazy. So with all these different planets, there's definitely going to be a lot of exploration in this game. Don't know how much detail there's going to be in all of these planets, but some of the areas and some of the planets does indeed seem to have quite a lot of detail, so it'd be interesting to see exactly how much detail you get in all the planets. Some of them are obviously going to be a bit barren, I would imagine. There is a mining mechanic in the game, so maybe a lot of the planets are just going to be about mining elements and stuff like that, which is potentially some interesting gameplay. Certainly exploring all the map on Skyrim was definitely good to find all the crazy places out in the middle of nowhere because the map was so big. Despite the towns being small, no real big areas, no real big towns or cities or anything on the map, but overall the map was massive in Skyrim and you could spend a great deal of time exploring the whole map. Previously in games like that I would actually like to explore the whole map, but Skyrim, even with the crazy amount of time that I put in the game, there's no way I could explore the whole map on Skyrim, which it helps to make the whole world more believable in my opinion. But another thing they were talking about in these previous videos for Starfield, they were saying there's going to be several factions in the game. Each of these factions is going to have its own theme, so there's like a space western faction, there's some space pirates, and there's like a corporate theme faction, and they mentioned there'll be others too, and of course each of these factions has their own areas and equipment with all the themes matching that particular faction. There is also, of course, a strong emphasis on music, which Bethesda seems to do in a lot of their games recently, and in Skyrim I think the use of the music was definitely a big part of what made that game so good, so it's good to see they're putting so much work into the music in this game as well. Although I could see from the initial gameplay here that the shooting, when you're up against the AI seem pretty weak, they're not really taking too much cover, not really paying too much attention to their enemies and pointing their back at you sometimes and stuff like that. You do sort of see that a lot in these types of games. It kind of would slow the gameplay down and would mean that there was a lot less gunfights, I imagine, if they made it more realistic, where you'd have to like take your time and actually use tactics and stuff. That sort of thing probably doesn't really fit the gameplay of this type of game, so the gunfighting does look a bit lame when you're used to like, hardcore PvP, online first-person shooters and stuff like that. But still, not necessarily going to take anything away from the enjoyment of the game. As is typical with some Bethesda games, there seems to be pretty varied looking character creation in terms of cosmetics and statistics, and the way in which you level up and develop your stats does also seem to be pretty open and varied as well, which is another thing that they like to do in Bethesda games. There's also crafting in the game. They mention crafting weapon mods. I'm not sure if you'll be able to craft anything other than weapon mods or not, but you can actually build and run your own outposts, so that's probably something a bit like what they had in Fallout 4, where you could have your own, I don't know what they called them in the game, you basically built your own little villages. But Starfield also has modular, customizable spaceships. So you can build your own spaceships using the modular system, piece them together bit by bit, and of course you can fly these ships and use them as the main ships that you're flying around with in the game by the look of it. Starfield does also have futuristic version of Skyrim's lock picking, but of course it's now hacking, so you can hack into locks to get access to new weapons and stuff like that. But overall, from what I've seen in the footage here, the game actually does look pretty good. I'm definitely looking forward to getting it myself. It has recently been delayed until 2023. It was originally planned. They originally planned to release it 11th of November 2022, which would be exactly 11 years after Skyrim was released. I remember it still to this day, Skyrim being released on the 11th of November in 2011. But yeah, as I say, unfortunately put back till 2023 is not necessarily a bad sign. If people are putting games back, it kind of indicates they want to actually get the game totally the way that it should be, or the way they intend it to be, rather than just releasing something that could probably do with a bit of extra work. Something that comes to mind there would have been Cyberpunk. That felt like it probably could have done with a bit of extra work before they eventually released Cyberpunk 2077, but never mind about that. We're talking about Starfield here, but yeah, like I say, it definitely looks interesting. I'm definitely going to get it. Definitely going to pre-order it. Although I'm probably going to wait to the last minute to pre-order it, just to get the pre-order bonuses. But you don't really want to get into the habit of pre-ordering too many games these days when you don't know exactly how good they're going to be. But anyway, I hope you found that entertaining. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Hopefully I'll see you next time. Take it easy.
It would appear that pirates of the Crimson Fleet are using the facility